single priorities for some folks' lives. So we want to widen that and broaden that a lot. We're really interested in moving from a relatively narrow platform of gaining equality to working against a system we see as broken by capitalism, racism, transphobia, homophobia, and other forms of oppression. And we know many of you are here at the social forum for the same reasons. We feel united as we oppose a neoliberal agenda, basically what we see placing profit over people, right? And we feel that folks in this room and us as LGBTQ people, that we have always had a rightful place, right, in this movement. If other folks have noticed, we're quite overrepresented here in many ways, right? We're here, right? And we've always been here, right? And so we need to also be organized, is what we feel, in a deeper way to move towards what are some of our true goals. So that's why we're here. And we basically oppose any agendas that long-term will align us with a mainstream LGBTQ agenda. Therefore, we see the mainstream gay agenda as not our agenda, okay? So we're the Roots Coalition, and we're a coalition of LGBTQ people of color-led groups who have mostly been working together for 3 years to build relationships and move towards shared work. We are made up of, and here are the roll call of the groups. And if folks want to make a little noise, if they represent that group in the room, so people kind of know, raise your hand so people know who's representing. The Esperanza Center.
Yeah!
Algo.
Ellos.
Fierce. Right? The Audre Lorde Project. Queers for Economic Justice. Song. Car might have a rep in the room. It's a clap for Car anyway. All right. Affinity. And Capia. And we're going to also have more about these groups on the wall. Capia. TGIGP. QuackMap. Oh, they can't be here. And Sylvia Rivera Law Project. And then we also have 2 collectives that are represented, the Disability Justice Collective and the First Nations Two-Spirit Collective. All right. So while our work differs greatly in regions, strategies, and constituencies, we all share a core belief in the goal of building grassroots LGBTQ work led by people most directly affected, right? And we know that's why a lot of y'all are here too. So we're grounded in local work, but we're ready to make work that has impact nationally. And like many other social justice movements at this moment, we see many opportunities in the LGBTQ mainstream movement to push it to be more radical after many years of more mainstream demands, and that's why we're coming together now. So we see it as timely, okay? At the moment, the 2 things we've been working on together have been developing a potential national campaign, we're gonna talk more about that today, as well as a community schools model that would build local bases for national coordinated work. And we're going to talk more about that too, okay? We're really, really glad you're here, really glad, and ready to be in the room with each of you and the groups and bases you represent, because we want to listen to you, we want to engage in discussions, and we want to invite your engagement in this work as it continues. We're very clear that we are not the only groups that are doing this kind of work in this country. There's some that we know about, and we know there's so much more that we don't, right? But we are a critical mass of groups that are ready and willing to come together to do this work, and that's why when we're talking more about the agenda for the day, we wanted, to put forward that we're bringing that leadership, but always trying to hold that humility in line at the same time, okay? Yeah, so we definitely want to focus on weaving thoughts together, and we also wanted to say quickly that we're trying to do a couple of different things today, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But in terms of bringing together both a People's Movement Assembly that's going to reflect voices from here, as well as getting some feedback on some work that we're already working on, if that makes sense. All right. So the last thing is that we see a certain part of the agenda, we're actually going to be presenting 3 individual ideas that are somewhat separate from the rest of the agenda. And those are around some specific campaign ideas. So we wanted to say that about the flow because we didn't want it to seem weird, like we're taking feedback, we're all building, we're sharing, and then all of a sudden, like, boom, there's some presentations, there's some written materials, it's like, where did this all come from? But we wanted to really bring that forward, that that we have some ideas that we've been incubating, and they're not finalized ideas, but we did want to get that feedback from the work, as well as then move back into another part of the agenda to think about resolutions. So for folks who are kind of thinking of a more traditional PMA, work with us. We're doing a little bit of a hybrid on that. Yep. That overall makes sense? Yes, yes. Anything to add? Good? Okay, great.
All right, so we're going to try to reduce the amount of like talking at you or trying to move through this quickly. And then the rest of the time is actually going to be spent in small groups for the most part, so we can really prioritize getting a lot of voices in the room, which doesn't often happen when we're doing big group conversations. So bear with us, we're almost done. So just going to go over the goals and agenda and some quick logistics for today, and then we're going to move. So just for our goals, and I apologize for folks that can't see this, but we have one up here. If you want to, feel free to come up during breaks to check this out again if you don't remember what I'm about to say. So goal number 1, to get a sense of the key pressing issues LGBTQ communities are facing across the country, number 1. Number 2, to present 3 possible strategic directions, which Caitlin has mentioned, that this Roots Coalition, it's what we're called, the Roots Coalition, is thinking about for a new national LGBTQ campaign. And we also want to get feedback on those potential directions. Number 3, to gauge the interest of all of you as organizations and individuals and trying to move in some direction together, right? Knowing that we're more powerful than, right, something that, we want to be more powerful than the sum of our parts, right? With a bigger group of people, we can get more done. So we want to gauge the interest of this group in joining efforts to build a more progressive national LGBT agenda. And then the last goal, number 4, to develop a queer trans resolution for the All People's Movement Assembly that's going to happen on Saturday. We're pretty much the only queer PMA that's happening, so we want to make sure that the voices of queer and trans people are represented in the broader social justice movement, People's Movement Assembly resolution process. So we have a big responsibility for all of us to hold in the room. So those are our 4 goals. How's that sound? We are very ambitious, but we decided to hold back our need to want to do everything that we can't get done in like 4.5 hours. So we tried to be realistic with the agenda, which I'm going to share with you now. So the quick agenda overview, we've already done the who's in the room, the human map. That was nice and fun. Thank you, Des. We're in obviously the process of talking about who we are in the background and goals agenda review. The next thing we're going to go into, part 1, is like an issue identification process. This is where we're going to be moving and shaking and getting that stuff done. Really finding out like specifically what's happening for you in your life and your communities and in your organizations. We'll spend some time there. And then we built in a lot of breaks, you guys. Aren't you happy about that? We took breaks. Yes, there's actually breaks in this 4.5-hour block. So we'll take a quick break, about 10 minutes. We'll come back together, and this is going to be like the chunk of the agenda where we really, really want to engage y'all and give us some feedback on some ideas for action together. No one's making any marriage commitments or anything like that. We're not going to have to like shack up tomorrow and make this coalition together, but this is just, unless you want to. That's where we're going to present some ideas. We'd love your feedback, your honest feedback on these issues. We'll take another break, and then we are actually going to like get a sense from people in the room what you think about these ideas through what I like to call a fun sticky dot exercise. Well, it doesn't really sound so fun. We'll make it fun. And we'll talk to you about that. Those things should be on your chair. We're about to tell you what that's about. And then we'll kind of close out with some next steps, and as well as a process that we want to propose to you all for how we're going to document what we did today and make sure that it's distilled down or condensed down into 1 or 2 or 3 resolutions to share with the national body for the Queer and Trans People's Movement Assembly. Yeah? So that's where our agenda is going to take us. And some things to know, like I said, we're going to be doing a lot of small group work, and groups work in pairs. And so I just want to ask folks to be flexible with that, but also try to be efficient with how we are pairing up or grouping up, because it helps us save time. So just to be aware that we are going to be moving around quite a bit. And I think that's it for that. So for logistics, real quick. The bathrooms are, Miles, to the right out of here. If folks have read in your programs the USSF's commitment to